Good morning, everybody. Thank you for waiting with us. I wish you a very nice morning and very warm welcome to this online event here on Zoom or via the live stream on YouTube. This event is called the New Winning Combination for Europe's Investors, and you will learn about why this is the case in a moment. My name is Johannes Barker. I'm the Commission's coordinating spokesperson for digital policy, research and innovation, and I'm privileged to guide you through the program this morning. So this event is co-hosted by the European Innovation Council and the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, EIT and EIC. Both are, as you know, the key Commission players when it comes to supporting innovation in Europe. And in the future, they want to intensify their collaboration. And today, the EIC and EIT will sign a memorandum of understanding to that effect. But before this document will be solemnly signed, we want to look into how this new cooperation will provide better support to European innovators, to highly innovative SMEs and startups, to higher education institutions, and to research organizations under the new Horizon Europe program. We will hear from the Deputy Director Generals of DGs R&I and EAC, from the chairwoman and the chairman of the boards of the EIC and the EIT, the directors of the EIC and EIT, as well as from a beneficiary who benefited from both EIC and EIT support. After the signature of the memorandum, we will also have some time for questions for the press. You can type your questions here in the chat, or if you follow us on YouTube, you can also tweet them with the hashtag EU Innovation. But before we come to all this in the next 45 minutes, I'm very honored to welcome Maria Gabriel, the European Commissioner for Innovation, Research, Culture, Education and Youth. And as such, as you know, the Commissioner responsible for both the EIC and the EIT. The Commissioner has kindly accepted to introduce us to the event and to share a few remarks with us, putting the main policy objectives of the memorandum in the context of the new Horizon Europe program. Commissioner, thank you so much for being with us this morning. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Johannes, honorable chairs, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, Happy New Year. I would like really to wish to all of you happier and safer 2021. Well, we are here in a very important moment, and I would like to start by saying that Europe needs to work together to compete globally on innovation. And today's event shows that we are ready to do this. I'm proud that that Europe New Innovation Initiative, the European Innovation Council, has come together to join forces with our existing initiative, the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. Well, some are saying that Europe is lagging behind in the field of innovation. It's not acceptable for me. I would like to say that for me, Europe has a huge potential in the field of innovation. Now it's time to join forces and to see how we can build synergies between our strength in the field of research and education, very well known, and with our potential and our impact in innovation. So to meet the innovation global challenge, we have to scale up and to work together. And we have to complete the knowledge triangle and reduce the innovation divide. On the basis of the results achieved by the pioneering EIT since its inception 10 years ago, huge progress has been made. And during its pilot phase, the European Innovation Council has demonstrated its attractiveness to innovative startups and its impact in helping these companies scale up. Just last month, we achieved the first unicorn with EIC support. And there are many challenges ahead as we emerge from the COVID-19 crisis. To safeguard Europe's technological autonomy, to accelerate the twin transition to a green and digital economy, to create jobs and opportunities for all the talent across Europe, men and women. And with the EIC and EIT working together, innovators will be able to access the support they need at the right time and in the right place. That's why, dear chairs, dear team, I like very much your holistic approach. When we look in the Memorandum of Understanding, and when we look at the areas that you already identified, the areas of cooperation, we can see that we are putting forward a real holistic approach, from the access to advisory services and networks, something very important, to the support of innovative startups and SMEs, to investment, to sharing data, and two topics very close to my heart: specific attention to women innovators and support for innovators from widening countries, because excellence and access to excellence will be the driver for our excellence in innovation too. So I would like really to say here that with the signature of this memorandum of understanding, I'm glad to say that we are witnessing a big step forward for European innovators and beyond them in the interest of all European citizens. And this marks a strong starting point for a new European innovation area to complete the European research area and the European education area. The future European innovation area will be there to empower innovators wherever they are in Europe and to make sure all the parts of the ecosystem are brought together. I would like here to particularly thank the chairs of the EIT Governing Board and the EIC Advisory Board. I see you on the screen. It's a great honor to be together with you. And I would like to thank my two Director Generals for making sure that it will happen. Thank you, Sine, for being with us. So on my side, I think that together we are sending a very strong signal today. Now, what I would like to say is really that we need to continue. In only 3 months, we passed from a letter of intent to a memorandum of understanding. Now, the next steps, it will be to deliver, because our innovators are waiting for us. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Commissioner, for this inspiring introduction and this passionate introduction. So as the Commissioner just outlined, the role of innovation in the EU and of today's memorandum for completing the knowledge triangle integration of the future innovation area, I would now like to zoom a little bit more into this new cooperation, and I'm very glad that we can welcome the top-level management of DG's RTD and EAC, as the Commission also just mentioned. We have the Deputy Director Generals here, Signe Razzo and Viviane Hoffmann. Signe, if I could maybe invite you to start and explain us how the new streamlined cooperation between the EIC and EIT will help entrepreneurs receive high-level support to deploy and scale their innovations faster and with greater impact. Thank you.
Well, many thanks, Johannes, dear Commissioner, dear chairs of the EIC and EIT, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to be present at this very important event for European innovators. And I really feel happy and proud that in these early days of 2021, and despite all odds, we are today demonstrating the unity of Horizon Europe's third pillar, and beyond this, of all European initiatives towards innovation. In a way, this is a message of hope for all Europeans. Europe is still able to boldly innovate and therefore to improve its living standards and to preserve its economic competitiveness. As Commissioner said, we can't really be satisfied or claim that Europe is not good in innovation. It is. And certainly with the EIC and the EIT help, it will be even better in the future. We are indeed the witnesses of the alliance sealed between the two most important EU innovation initiatives, the European Institute for Technology and Innovation, the EIT, which was created more than 10 years ago, and the European Innovation Council, the EIC, which has been piloted since 2018. And I'm convinced that they have the potential to put Europe at the forefront of 21st century global innovation. The EIC is the new kid on the block, so to speak, and it will be fully launched under Horizon Europe. However, it has already demonstrated a huge impact during its pilot phase. In the last year alone, it attracted close to 14,000 applications from innovative startups and SMEs and EIC-supported companies that have attracted more than 5 billion euros in private investments. Earlier this week, the EIC reached a major milestone for making the first direct equity investment of 15 million euro in CoreWave, a French startup developing a breakthrough heart pump for patients with heart failure. This is not the first for the EIC, but it is a first for the European Commission to make this kind of direct investment. So we have a great success with the EIC, but I'm convinced that we can go further and faster in partnership with the EIT. DG Research and Innovation is fully committed to strengthen this vital collaboration between the EIC and EIT. And we are also committed to strengthen our collaboration with DG EIC and to achieve Commissioner Gabriel's vision for a European research area and European education area and a European innovation area. Many thanks.
Thank you so much, Signe, for your message of hope, as you said, and optimism when it comes to Europe's role in innovation. Now, Vivian Hoffmann, may I kindly ask you to maybe complement from the EIC side perspective and maybe with a focus on the EIT and the importance of training also in the knowledge triangle. Vivian Hoffmann.
Thank you very much. Dear Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen, let me please highlight 2 points. First, I would like to stress how complex the innovation process is. Many aspects are involved and many factors need to be present to trigger innovation and support it efficiently. And these are, of course, the innovators themselves, the funding, the framework conditions, and the environment in which innovation can happen and grow. There is no single and simple way to support innovation. The financial aspect is very important, and Signe explained very well what the EIC will bring to the table. But this funding can only deliver if it is matched by the right framework conditions, the right environment, let's call it the right ecosystem, in which these young ventures can grow. And this is why the EIT is indispensable. And it is precisely why the EIT and the EIC must work hand in hand in the European Union strategy for innovation in Europe. Secondly, I refer to the more than 3,200 ventures that the EIT has supported and that have already raised more than 3.3 billion euros in investment. These figures are impressive, but more importantly, behind this number, behind each of these startups, there are talented people. Tavi Madiberg, who is here with us today, is a perfect example. We know how important it is to have the right skills and to have the right mindset to innovate. And this is where education and training play a crucial role. The EIT brings this education and training component to our policy as part of the knowledge triangle, supporting Pillar 3 of Horizon Europe. Tightening the links between the EIT and the EIC under this pillar will also reinforce this aspect to the benefit of our European innovators. We have already seen concrete synergies during the pilot phase of the EIC. I am confident that this memorandum of understanding will pave the way for even greater collaboration, and we look very much forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Vivian Hoffmann, Deputy Director General of DG EIC, for highlighting the complexity again of innovation and the difference that this new collaboration of EIC and EIT is aiming to make. And now I would like to, or we would all like to hear firsthand from the distinguished chairs of the boards, why this increased strengthened cooperation is necessary and beneficial. And in particular, what are the opportunities for synergies between the EIC on the one hand and the EIT's knowledge and innovation communities on the other? We are honored to welcome this morning Mark Ferguson, the chair of the EIC Advisory Board, and Joya Gatesy, the chair of the EIT Governing Board. Professor Ferguson, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you, everyone. And dear Commissioner, dear colleagues, first of all, can I thank very much my colleagues in the Commission and in the EIT for their cooperation. And let me start by emphasizing the synergies between the EIC and the EIT. The European Innovation Council is primarily involved in crowding in private investors, in providing blended finance, both grants and equity, to startup companies. And the EIT has a real focus on bootstrapping up, on helping and educating innovators, allowing them to develop their business proposals such that they can come to the EIC and to private investment in order to grow their businesses. So that's an example that's highlighted in the memorandum of where there's real synergy between the two organizations. And we want to maximize that synergy. We really want to maximize the number of innovative companies in Europe, the number of those companies that grow and scale in Europe and provide major opportunities for the European innovators, but provide great returns to the European citizens, both in terms of jobs, growing the economy, and addressing important problems such as the green agenda. So nothing could be more opportunistic or more important than growing and scaling new businesses in the digital and green economy. You're doing good for the planet on the one hand, and you're creating jobs and growing the economy on the other. It's a double win on the double bottom line. It's really important that we have an inclusive approach, that we include all aspects of the European community. The Commissioner has highlighted the importance of women in innovation and untapped potential that we really want to encourage. She's also highlighted the importance of widening this innovation. Great potential across Europe. This is fantastic. We want to tap into that potential. We want to work hand in glove with the European Innovation Technology KICs in order to stimulate businesses and finance those businesses so that they can grow. So real synergy between the EIC and the EIT. And I think it's very important that we move on to execution. The difference between dreams and reality is execution. And the EIT and the EIC intend to execute this cooperation. We've already started. You will see over the course of the next year and longer the fruits of that collaboration. And the real aim is to make sure that Europe emerges as a very strong leader in the innovation space. This is a competitive agenda globally. We have other countries around the world who are investing significantly in innovation. This is good, but it's also very important that Europe is investing heavily and competes at a global scale in the innovation space. And that's precisely what this cooperation will help us do. It will allow us to work synergistically. So I think it's a time of great hope. I think it's a time of great hope for innovation. We've seen this in the COVID-19 crisis. Nobody a year ago would have told you that you could develop a vaccine and have it in the population within a year. Most people would have said that takes 10 years. Actually, we have done it, we meaning the community, the scientific, the innovation, the academic and the industrial community, in a year. That's really important. That's a sign of innovation. It's a sign of the importance of it for society and for the economy. So strong execution is really important. Real success in Europe is important. And real hope for the future is important. And on that note, I'll close with the words of Nelson Mandela, who said, "It always seems impossible until it's done." And believe me, we are going to make it done to make Europe a strong leader in innovation between the EIC and the EIT. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much, Professor Ferguson, for your passionate remarks, for quoting Mandela, and also noted on the other quotes that the difference between dream and reality is execution. It's really something we can keep in mind, all of us. And for also for highlighting the role of vaccines. And we cannot reiterate often enough that the vaccine developers benefited, especially BioNTech, from EU research funding since a very long time, which made it possible for them to now scale up so quickly. Now I would like to hand over to Joya Getzi, the chair of the EIT Governing Board.
Thank you very much, Johannes. I just want to take a couple of minutes to reflect on all that has already been said by the Commissioner, by the Deputy Director Generals, by Mark. starting from the point that the commissioner made, that sometimes Europe is said not to be innovative. In its 10 years of history, the EIT has produced what is today the biggest innovation network across Europe. A network that involves thousands of business partners, of academics, of students, and thousands of startups. Well, the biggest innovation network in Europe has been created by the EU. This is an amazing feat. And I think that in launching what has been described by the Deputy Director General of DG Research as the new kid on the block, the EIC, again, the EU has shown foresight in bringing together two complementary halves of this major effort in bringing innovation into action across Europe. The EIT creates the ecosystems that sustain innovation. The EIC has the ability and the power to go into these ecosystems, choose, select, and finance the most promising companies. Last year has shown us the absolute need of innovation to get out of one of the most difficult situations that we've witnessed in our lives. Bringing vaccines to the population, as Mark said, is one feat. There were thousands of innovative, game-changing solutions, sometimes small. For example, in the production of oxygen, in segmentation of patients, in remote monitoring of patients, that we've brought to the ground. And to tackle the recession, the economic recession that we are witnessing, again, we need much more innovation to the ground to create jobs and a positive effect on the economy. So I think that the EIT and the EIC have an amazing opportunity in front of us. We are very, very fortunate that we are also starting together at the start of the Horizon Europe program. And so we can really test together and execute, as Mark was saying, on a very pioneering and new innovation approach that I'm very confident will have very demonstrable and measurable effects that we'll see on the ground. So in conclusion, I don't want to repeat what has already been said very well before. It remains for me to thank all the colleagues on the EIC Advisory Board, the EIT Governing Board, but also, all the colleagues below that have put together an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding that is very operational, that guides us in how we will work together. I'll take one more minute to say that the governing board of the EIT and the EIC as well, I'm sure, is very, very keen to continue to work and sponsor women innovators, not just, at all level of the innovation pipeline. So not just or only as CEOs of startups and companies, but throughout the management level of companies, in research, across our student bodies, in our own organizations, and we'll continue to monitor this very closely, as we will continue to monitor and foster the effectiveness of creating innovative ecosystems in countries that haven't had up to now the opportunity to bring innovation to the ground through our RIS scheme and co-location centers. We believe that a diffuse innovative ecosystem is the way to bring Europe truly at the forefront. So this collaboration between the EIC and the EIT is something that has been designed on the back of a very successful investment in the EIT made by the EU. And collaborating in a very, very effective and efficient way is something that we owe to ourselves, but more importantly, to the communities out there, to the citizens of Europe who expect this from us. The EU has invested enormous resources, monetary and intellectual, in this effort, and we owe it to them all and to ourselves to make of this a resounding success. So thank you very much for your trust. And thank you very much again to all the people who worked on this MOU.
Thank you very much indeed, Joya Getzi, Madam Chair, for your tour d'horizon over the last 10 years of EIT history, for underlining the achievements when it comes to building innovation ecosystems in Europe, and also for highlighting the opportunities that arise from the new cooperation. And now that we looked into innovation and this new strengthened cooperation from the various angles, from political, policy, practical angles, I'm very happy that we have the opportunity to actually hear from a beneficiary who benefited from both EIC and EIT support. Tavi Medeberg is with us. He is the CEO of Skeleton Technologies from Tallinn, Estonia. And I have to say that you also have a factory in Großröhrsdorf in my beautiful home region of Saxony in Eastern Germany. Mr. Medeberg, we have a few minutes to learn more about your company and the support you've received. We make this a little bit interactive. So let me maybe start with the first question. Your company works on ultra capacitors. I see many faces nodding. May I nevertheless ask you, what is it? What does Skeleton Technologies do exactly? And what is unique about what you're doing?
Yes, thank you very much. Skeleton Technologies is the European market leader in ultracapacitors, and we are the key enabler to drive down the CO2 emissions in transportation, help to stabilize the grid, and make the industrial sector more efficient. And if you look at our customers, we range from German car manufacturers to General Electric, Danfoss, Sumitomo, up to European Space Agency. And despite the COVID, this year, in 2020, actually, we showed 3 times revenue growth despite the pandemic. And we started the year with about 180 million euros of order intake. But you have the correct question that this all sounds great, but what in the world is an ultracapacitor? So ultracapacitors are fast energy storage devices. And what do I mean by fast? You can literally recharge them in a matter of seconds. And they have 1 million life cycles. We know that best batteries maybe have a few thousand. But we are not the silver bullet, because we have less total amount of energy, meaning that we complement both lithium-ion batteries and fuel cells by covering the peak power and then helping to downsize and lower the cost of the entire system. And now, of course, we are not alone in this market. Last year, Tesla entered the market by purchasing one of our top competitors, Maxwell Technologies. And then what is different about us? Skeleton has 4 times higher power density than any of the closest competition. And of course, it sounds that I'm just making here good marketing by saying we are 4 times better than Tesla. But actually, last year, the US Navy carried out benchmarking testing where they took the devices from the best Asian manufacturers and now Maxwell, which is part of Tesla. And even they had to say that one small Estonian German company clearly outcompetes all the US and Asian rivals.
Wow, that's fascinating. Thank you for taking us to space and to defense and on all these exciting areas. Maybe take us also a little bit back in time. How did your innovation start? And what did it take actually to get from the very first idea that you had to where are you today?
Actually, we started in 2009, and I think that our first, let's say, lab was about 30 square meters in the city of Tartu in Estonia. And at first, we just had big ideas, some IP, and a PowerPoint presentation, to be honest. And it took us a significant amount of time to go through the materials technology development cycle. And by now, what we have done, we have invested 93 million euros to the company. We are industrial scale manufacturing. We show very strong customers from automotive to grid. And I think the key challenges along the way was really the ecosystem. And the ecosystem in a way that if you think about this type of deep tech hardware companies, then I think that it's sometimes difficult to say to startup companies, but the capital is not the main issue. It's about really the ecosystem. And what do I mean by that? 3 key pillars. But if you look at our cooperation with EIT, InnoEnergy, and also now EIC, firstly, it's about sales and business development. Because in the end of the day, a successful business will not be built because of investors. It will be built because of customers. And opening up the doors, especially with key automotives who are very sensitive in terms of the technology performance, was critical to our success. Secondly, the access to academia and also technology scale-up. This is what EIT and InnoEnergy brought to the table. And thirdly, when we started in 2015, we had this classical hen and egg situation because we had strong interest from the customers, but nobody was willing to commit back then with orders. And the point was that investors were looking at, well, if you have the orders, we will definitely invest. And customers were saying, well, you don't even have the plant. How we can rely on a small company to deliver a critical component for the next 10 years.
Thank you. That's very interesting to hear that the ecosystem is at least equally important, if not more important than the money. But could you maybe illustrate in a little bit more detail? So what exactly was the support you received that you needed? That I think you illustrated already, but what you received from the EIC and the EIT, how it worked together for you, and maybe also especially during this last year of the pandemic, how it helped you during that year?
So in EIT, we started in 2015 with the first innovation project. I think that what was important with EIT InnoEnergy was that they came in as equity, because in both phases, companies actually do need equity. And the key part was actually joint sales and business development, where we consider EIT InnoEnergy and EIT as a good extension to Skeleton Technologies, which can open up doors. But also, let's look at practical deals. One of the largest automotive deals which we signed, contract worth over 80 million. We were in 2019 in a situation where the OEM was thinking that, well, it's a 10-year program. And if we take the risk here, then we need to be sure that the company will last for 10 years and thrive, because otherwise we have significant supply issue. And InnoEnergy came in, and together we managed to build that credible business case. And of course, the investments, if you look at the COVID times, it was quite interesting. We had 8-figure investment contract almost signed with a large strategic investor right before the pandemic. And of course, during the pandemic, all the brakes were put on. And when EIT InnoEnergy stepped in terms of supporting together with existing investors. But here, the critical aspect was also EIC. because just before the pandemic, we had signed a letter of intent with a leading automotive for 1 billion, and we had to start the development. And together with EIC, we managed to finance our super battery project and drive this forward. And this has been critically successful. And if you talk about capital, then I would say that the community needs to act as a catalyst. Both EIT, InnoEnergy, and EIC especially. EIC supported us with 2.5 million. But after that, and literally 3 months after that, we included 41 million euros of private capital, because EIC was the one who was willing to take the risk in the midst of the pandemic, where the private investors shied away. And that served as a catalyst in taking us forward as a business and not losing out to the competition, because I would highlight maybe one other subject. But if you talk about European innovation, let's be honest. Sometimes we discuss that US is the country where the private market and private capital works, and in EU we have too much, let's say, state policy and intervention. But look at Tesla. Elon Musk yesterday became the richest man in the world, and this is due to, in one part, government policy, because back in 2010, when Tesla was really in early beginnings, US government gave a $500 million loan to a company which was in really early stages. And to put it in context, after getting the loan, Tesla managed to do the IPO where they raised 220 million, meaning that 2/3 of Tesla early financing in really risky days came from the government. I'm really glad to see that this EIT and EIC cooperation has gone forward, because for Skeleton, this has been critical part, not only from capital side and being a catalyst for the private investors, but really driving the business forward and driving the sales. Because in the end of the day, if you talk about CO2 impact, it only comes from the customers, and private market needs to execute, and we need to have the proper ecosystem.
Thank you very much indeed, Tavi Madeberg. It's very fascinating listening to you, but unfortunately time is running fast. So let me thank you for these insights and for having summarized your journey from your idea to your product, but also with the EIC and the EIT for us. I wish you all the very best for the future. And now we come to the solemn moment. The Memorandum of Understanding will now be signed by Professor Mark Ferguson, the chair of the EIC Advisory Board, Joya Getzi, the chair of the EIT Governing Board, Jean-David Malot, the director of the EIC Task Force, and Martin Kern, the director of the EIT, in the presence of Commissioner Maria Gabriel. May I ask you to kindly open your pens and to proceed to the signature of the Memorandum of Understanding, please. Yeah, I can hear the pens. Very good. And I see Professor Ferguson showing a signature. Please all be so kind and hold it in front of the camera, please. Yeah, Joya Getzi. Jean-David. Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. There's no applause in these online events, unfortunately. So the memorandum is signed, and it will be available on the web pages of both the EIT and the EIC in a very short moment. We will also publish a news item in the minutes that follow. So you will, for the journalists, have all this again very easy to find. And now, as mentioned at the very beginning, we still have a little bit of time left. I'm happy for that. So we can take a few questions from the press. So a very warm welcome to the journalists connected. I already see the first question. So of course, please focus on today's events with your question. The signatories of the memorandum, Mark Ferguson, Joya Getzi, Jean-David Malot, and Martin Kern, are available, and I'm sure Mr. Madeberg as well from Skeleton Technologies. You can type your question in the chat, or you can send it via Twitter, for example, with the hashtag EU Innovation. So I'm reading the first question, which comes in from Goda Yokaite from Science Business. I have two questions I would like to ask. First, the EIC and EIT are essentially going to provide joint services. May I ask what these services will be, how they will be coordinated, when they will start, how they will be funded? That's the first question. Second, Commissioner Gabriel has been speaking more and more about the European Innovation Area. Can we expect to see a proposal from the Commission for establishing such an European Innovation Area, or perhaps we see more concrete actions towards making this happen like we are today? May I suggest that we start with the first question, and I don't know whether the Commissioner would like herself to say a few words on the innovation area on the second question afterwards, but start with the cooperation EIC and EIT. Maybe we can start with the distinguished chairs. Maybe Joy Getzi, if you would like to start, and then Professor Ferguson could complement.
Thank you very much. Thank you for these questions. So the EIT creates ecosystems. That means that it brings together and funds education, students, research, business partners, startups that work all together to create innovative solutions and services. The EIC funds directly certain companies. So how will we work together? Obviously, it is reciprocal, but for example, each of us, so both the EIT and the EIC, will have access to our respective networks of advisors and experts. The EIT and the EIC will share certain acceleration programs for companies. The EIC will be a perfect vehicle to scale up some of our startups that look very promising. For example, like Skeleton that just spoke and you heard about. So we will collaborate on companies that we will make more successful, faster at growing than they would otherwise be. We can also work together in supporting these companies getting external funding. As we were mentioning before, the Deputy Director General Hoffman mentioned that the EIT-funded companies have already raised over 3 billion euros in external funding from the private sector. This is another area where EIC and EIT can collaborate. On your question, when will we start to collaborate? We have started already. We have collaborated on a number of companies last year, and we will continue to do so. Again, Skeleton is just one of the companies we've already worked on together. So I hope this starts to answer your question. I'm available if you have more.
Very good. Perhaps I can complement a little bit what Gio said. So I completely agree with everything that you've said. And just to add a little bit to that, first of all, we've set up, in addition to everything that's been said, a set of pilot actions. So with 4 of the KICs, energy, climate, digital, and health, we've set out new cooperation mechanisms to test. And they're funded by 1 million euros from the EIC pilot, and they're in train. So not only are we doing everything that Gio has said, but we're also testing new mechanisms of cooperation with 4 of these KICs to see what else we can do. And then to add at the kind of oversight level, strategically, there is a joint working group that's permanent, consists of 3 members of the board of the EIT and 3 members of the board of the EIC. That will continue. And at the operational level, between the EIC task force and between EIT and the various DGs. And what that's about is making sure that we have the appropriate communication and also the appropriate monitoring to see that we're taking advantage of future opportunities. So I think between what my colleagues have said and these small additions, you can see that it's very real, it has started, and it will grow. And we will do some experiments to see if we can do some more innovative things in addition to what we're currently doing.
Thank you very much indeed. I see one question, one hand raised, apologies, from Julio. If we have a chance to unmute him, then I would like to invite him to ask his question directly. If we have a technological means to do that. Julio? It does not seem to work.
I can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, there you are.
It was difficult at the beginning. Well, I think today is a day for congratulate. But can anybody explain why it took 2 years right here since the creation of the EIC by the European Commission, and why both organizations were put, let's say, back to back during that time?
Thank you very much for your question, Julio. I think it's maybe more a question for let's say the policy side. So maybe I would invite the directors to say the word on that one. Maybe Jean-David or Martin Kern.
I'm happy to start.
Go ahead, Martin. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jean-David. In fact, we've been cooperating together with Jean-David between the EIT and the EIC right from the beginning. So that is not the moment now to start the cooperation, but it's the moment to scale up the cooperation and make it more structured. So you heard already also from Joya Getzi that there are already pilot activities ongoing, in particular with our first 3 knowledge and innovation communities, EIT Climate Kick, EIT InnoEnergy, and EIT Digital, connecting them with the accelerator program of the EIC. And of course, in the end of the day, we're doing this collaboration for people like Tavi Madiberg, startups, scale-ups, entrepreneurs, to help them to navigate more easily through the different instruments that are available and actually bring us closer to a European innovation area by integrating the different programs. So the reason we are signing this MOU now is because we're going into Horizon Europe, and the future for the new instruments is being laid out. And this is the moment to put it into a structural cooperation. But we have been cooperating from day one, and maybe pass to Jean-David to give a few more examples of that cooperation as well.
No, thank you, Martin. In fact, you said everything that was necessary to underline. I mean, we have started to work already even before the 2 years that were mentioned in this question by Julio, because of course the cooperation with what is at the beginning of the reflection of what should be later on the European Innovation Council had already started. I mean, we were working already with KIC InnoEnergy in particular, with the KIC Digital, when we were working on the SME instrument, which was at the beginning of the vision of what is now the EIC accelerator, and the same applied where we were working more in the early stage in the emergence of new radical technology with the Future Emerging Technology Program, which was the first step of what is now the EIC Pathfinder. But what is key now is that in the last 1.5 years, what we have tried to do is to establish on the basis of new initiative, new pilot, what could be a more structured cooperation, something that could create more impact on what we are doing, avoiding overlap for the benefit of our innovators in Europe. This is what was at stake, and this is a very important step that we are achieving with this memorandum of understanding, because It's true that we will have a very important budget for the period 2021-2027. So the 10 billion for the EIC, the almost 3 billion for the EIT, but it's nevertheless a rather limited budget regarding the needs that our innovators have in Europe. So we have to use this important budget in the most efficient way as possible. And it was necessary to go to this step, not only to evoke and to test a number of pilots, as rightly mentioned by Mark, because it was necessary to do that in order to test a number of ideas, but now to move to another step, to something which is more structured, more powerful, more impactful. And this is what I think that we have achieved with this memorandum of understanding, and that now we will concretely implement. And this implementation will start already this year in 2021 in the context of our respective work program. And there already we will ensure that our work program will work hand in hand. And this is something that of course you will not see because it's something purely technical for us, but some things that our innovator will see in their reality, because when they will have a support coming from the EIT, they will have also access to a number of support provided by the EIC and vice versa. So the real idea behind this memorandum of understanding is to create a kind of virtual one-stop shop for our innovators, coming from either the EIC or the EIT, whatever the source of origin will be. And this is what we have tried to achieve with this memorandum of understanding, and that now we will put into practice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another question from Robin Waters from Tech EU, and I think it ties into quite nicely what you just said about the virtual one-stop shop and also the pilots that were mentioned by Professor Ferguson. And the question is, so if you now go forward in concrete terms, so what are the next concrete steps in this new cooperation based on the memorandum that we signed today, or that you signed today? And what is the timeline? Is there some sort of a concrete timeline for this? I don't know who would like to start.
Well, perhaps I will start by saying that behind the MOU, we have established a working group that involves board members, but also operational members of both organizations in order to ensure, as Mr. Waters is suggesting there, that the words in the MOU get translated into a number of operational steps. I can describe some of them for you, but for example, we need flows of informations and mechanisms so that each of the EIT 8 knowledge and innovation communities can select, foster their startups and have a way of deciding which ones to share and to present to the EIC. We have ways through EIC personnel of linking EIC funded companies to the accelerated programs that we have in each of our 8 different KICs. And we have collaborations on communication, for example, and so on and so forth. So behind the high level, there is an operational layer, and that has been worked on and will, more importantly, continue to be worked on because the joint working group between the EIT and the EIC is a permanent setting that is here to stay. So we will learn and adjust as we go along. But just to stress, there is a full operational layer behind the MOU that you see today.
And I can just add a little bit to that. I think really importantly, from the EIC's perspective, I mean, internally, the board of EIC will be setting targets and monitoring them. So we are interested, for example, in the percentage of women CEOs or women founders or women investors. We're interested in companies that will be coming from the widening communities, and we'll be interested in joint projects with the EIT. We'll be looking to see how many EIT companies have come forward through the accelerator, have got the shared business services, how have they performed in the competition by comparison with others. And by the way, we'll be doing the same thing with the European Research Council and in due course with missions and so on. So there's the real operational stuff and the strategic oversight, but then, you know, the meat of how you actually implement some of this stuff is to say, where do we want to be and how are we going to get there? And we would like to see the most innovative, the best companies that have been helped by the EIT move forward quickly through their journey, get financing and help from the EIT and the EIC, crowd in private investors, grow and scale in Europe, and that we should have very, very successful European companies as a result of that. And that's all about monitoring what's happening. And then when you look at that, you can say, okay, so this is not going as well as we thought it was. What do we need to do in addition to address that? I mean, that's how life works. And I will be really pleased if we get everything right the first time, but I'll be really surprised. I suspect that we'll get a few things really well, and there'll be other stuff and say, actually, we can do a little bit better here. And that's all about the communication that Gio has talked about. It's all about these working groups and operationalization, so that effectively you're working together to optimize the system, not working in competition or in ignorance of what the others are doing in an uncoordinated way. So I hope that helps in thinking about how we'll monitor things going forward.
Thank you very much, Professor Ferguson. Ms. Getzi, I think I couldn't find a better word of closing, actually, and the time is running fast. So I'm afraid with this, we will have to leave it here. We have reached, I think, the end of this online event. So the memorandum of understanding framing this new intensified collaboration between the EIC and EIT should now be online, and we will also publish news items for further information, as I said before. I would like to thank all of you for your time this morning, in particular Commissioner Maria Gabriel for having been with us, as well as the Deputy Director Generals, the Chairwoman and the Chairman of the boards, the Directors of the EIC and the EIT, for your interesting thoughts and enriching remarks. I would like to thank also Tavi Madiberg from Skeleton Technologies for having shared his experience with us. Many thanks also to everybody who followed us, to the press and everybody else for your participation and interest in this event. I wish you all a very nice Friday and a very innovative and knowledgeable year 2021. Thank you and goodbye.